You're listening to Well, I Laughed, Part 2 of Influential Secrets. Shaken, not stirred. Today I made instant coffee at 3 p.m. No. What period was it? 1 p.m. And that was good and actually really important. And also my right eye's muscle started to spasm. So yeah, and I was like, hey class, hey look, see what happens? This is called PM coffee. And and a kid was like, that's weird.
Whether or not it's coffee or a stroke.
Oh, wow.
You scare me sometimes.
You're right. There was a moment of like my second year teaching where I'm teaching like a lesson and I start to smell toast. And that's strange because I'm in a classroom nowhere near the cafeteria. And I'm like, I'm having a stroke right now. And I don't think you're supposed to be aware of it this early. And I turn around and I go, this is probably just like a really weird question to ask everyone. But does anyone like have toast right now? And then in the corner, a kid goes, you caught us. And I go, what? And I walk over, and they have in the corner of my room where an outlet is, plugged in a toaster and put a couple of jams near it, too.
You didn't think you would smell?
I don't know, but they were sophomores, so I don't know if they thought much.
The answer is no.
Out of sight, out of mind, fresh toast in the morning. The immediate relief that I wasn't dying of cancer. Sorry, of a stroke.
Is that
Freudian slip there. The immediate relief that I wasn't having a stroke was then like, okay, but also if something were to burn down a school, I believe a toaster would do it.
Is that like a symptom of a stroke? You like can smell toast?
Yes.
I might die from a stroke.
I smell toast all the time.
I didn't know that was like I knew about the like left arm tingling thing for a heart attack. I guess probably that's because my family has heart issues.
It's amazing to watch Maia's face today. Right now.
I might die.
Actually, we have a listener story submitted to us. It's brief, but it fits kind of perfectly into what we're talking about. I love watching Maia kind of unpack what she experienced as a child. We have a listener story, and I haven't even told Maia about this yet because I want to see your reaction. I even got their permission as I was messaging. I was like, before we go any further, can I say this? And so this comes from our friend Darcy, who submitted this story. Hi there. One of the lost children of Casa Bonita here. Since we are in the spookiest of seasons, I thought I would share that I got separated from my family at Casa Bonita years ago. In the month of October. Want to guess what they do during that specific month to make the already festive theme even more festive? That's right, a haunted house. I got lost in the caves of a haunted house as I was completely disoriented by the fog machines, strobe lights, and pre-recorded screams. Now that I'm thinking about it, the screams might have actually been real. Masked figures would jump out of the pitch black tunnels, terrorizing children. It's a gorilla they employ. Terrorizing children. I had to use my honey-soaked hands to feel my way out and use the sounds of the waterfall to guide me back. Honestly, you were well prepared as a kid. This is a classic Colorado kid who's like, hold up, 3 points of contact and use the sound to help locate myself.
Other senses. Other senses.
A Nebraska kid would have died. I say that as a Nebraska kid. Found my way back to the table. At this point, my parents were still searching for me, so I sat unattended. I decided to soothe myself with basket after basket of sopapillas without any question from the staff. I raised the little flag, and magically, another basket would arrive. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Can we share this? And they said, absolutely. I had apparently repressed it for years and have always been adverse to Halloween-related events. but now it kind of all makes sense. It does have a happy ending. I was reunited with my family and went home with a full belly and a new coping mechanism: fried bread and sugar.
I love that.
Darcy, thank you for sharing. Like, that was wonderful.
While you were saying that, I have I unlocked a memory of also being in those caves and scared. And so I was like, maybe I was there during No, I think I was just scared in those caves.
Just scared in those caves in general. You're like, they were my own screams, but there were screams.
I have a very distinct memory of touching the wall and like being like, that's not rock.
I mean, it's never rock, but that's not the not rock that they have at Casa Bonita. Nice.
Yeah. That's a phenomenal story.
I thank you. And I love that we are getting this in October. Yeah. When this episode comes out, I think it'll be Christmas. No, I'm kidding. It'll be November, but get that Christmas list going. Yeah. But we're still in October, which I love. And that story inspired me to tell one more little story.
Oh, okay.
I have a hard time in haunted houses because I love live theater and I'm so willing to suspend belief. I am the person you want at a comedy club. I'm the person you want at your improv show or your community theater performance of Fiddler on the Roof. Okay, I was in Guys and Dolls myself. I am ready to buy into whatever little world we're building here.
Yeah.
And so haunted houses are like my worst nightmare. Years ago, when I was like a sophomore, junior in college. Yeah. Older than I should have been. I went to the haunted house with my friends Lydia, Jacob, and a few other of my friends too. And you know, of course, the last thing is like a corn maze, and you go through and you emerge from the corn maze, and you can see up the hill, and that's where your car's parked, and you're like, okay, we made it.
Oh no!
And then of course, masked chainsaw man emerges, and I freak out so badly. I shove Jacob and Lydia both down so I can run faster. And it's only when I'm at the top of the hill that like the rest of my brain catches up.
And you're like,
oh, so that was not real, but the push was. But the moment where push step, that moment, that was all me, baby. That was real. So I get it. It's scary. It's a scary time of the year. I get it.
I think the first haunted house that I went to was also like a kind of a haunted corn maze. There was like that section where the chainsaw guy chases you, and I was in middle school back when those like chunky loose shoes were like skater shoes were like really in, and so I'm running. It's the first haunted house that I've ever been to, and so I'm fucking terrified. And I think we had just come out of like a strobe light room where there's like that medical procedure that's gone wrong. Yikes. And I'm running from the chainsaw guy, and they have like all the rules, right? That like you can't touch the people, they can't touch you.
Right.
Like if you lose something, you also can't go back for it.
Right.
And so I'm running from chainsaw guy. Shoe falls off because I'm in a panic, and my shoes were laced not well because as was the fashion. And I was more scared of my mom learning that I had lost a shoe than I was of the chainsaw guy. And I tell you that because I then peeked my head back through the curtain and said, "Can I get that?"
I'm sorry, I do. Terrifying. I need this stuff.
Yeah, and then he went and grabbed it for me and like stuck his hand back through the fence or the thing and gave it to me. And I'll never go back to another one of those again.
I don't blame you.
I think it was Field of Screams. I think it's still open. Actually.
That's cute. I love that as a name. Field of Screams.
Yeah.
I very strong in this opinion. As a person who is still dating and thus pretending to like things I don't. I draw a line at horror movies. I'm not interested in seeing them, especially since the pandemic. I don't need anything worse in front of my eyeballs. I'm already kind of concerned.
It's already the apocalypse.
Yes. So I have just taken to saying, I'm also kind of 30 now, like for the record. I have taken to saying, hey, we're grown adults. How about we just agree to cuddle and watch a rom-com instead, okay? I don't need to watch a horror movie to be like,
oh my God,
so
protect
scared.
me.
Like, hold me? Let's watch Julia Roberts.
That's so, I've never once been able to watch horror movies, and I love that we're having this conversation now that this episode is going to release in
After
November.
Halloween.
Yeah. For us, dear listener, it is October 18th.
It is.
So,
I was like, oh shit. 18th, yes.
18th. So Halloween is yet to come. But what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I had a sleepover with some of my like mom's friends' kids.
Okay.
And so my mom, when she moved here, made a bunch of like other Japanese friends, and they all married white guys for the most part, and so they all have half Japanese kids.
Okay.
And so they really wanted us to be friends, and we were for the most part when we were young.
It's hard to make kids be friends with kids. You
I
can't,
don't
like,
still talk to them,
Sure.
but like we hung out.
Right.
But there was one time we had a sleepover at, her name was, Nikia, I think. But we all had a sleepover. Her parents like were, I don't know, maybe out, maybe her older brother was watching us or something like that. And we were like, let's watch a horror movie. And I did it to be cool because the other, Nikki was younger than me by a couple years, but the girl that was my age, Anna, was my age. And
Okay.
we were always kind of pitted against each other a little bit. She went to Vanderbilt to become a doctor. So
okay.
someone won, and
Well,
I don't
who
think
has
it
a
was
podcast?
me. Okay, don't bring that up. But, or maybe, I don't remember. She went to Vanderbilt. Anyway, so I was trying to impress Anna. And so
Okay.
we turned on the Poltergeist, the original Poltergeist.
How old is the original Poltergeist?
I think it was made in the 60s or something
Oh,
like
good.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was still somehow terrifying, even though I knew you can see, like, the monster at the end, you can, like, almost see the strings
Sure.
pulling it.
Right.
It's, like, very clearly, like, the special effects were not great, but it was so fucking terrifying. At the end, we were all like, okay, let's go to bed. And, like, kind of tiptoed up the stairs. Like, the rest of the house is dark. And Anna goes off to like change or whatever, and me and Nikki like go into the room, and Anna jumps out of the closet.
Oh no! Punch!
And I don't think I've ever been more scared in my life. It was unwell.
My good friend Riley, love her to death. We went to college together. So easily frightened. We lived in the same apartment complex, but not the same building our sophomore year. And so she left my apartment, and then I went to go stand on the balcony to be like, have a great night. Like as she
walked away,
exited
and you
and
scared
rounded
the
the
shit out
building,
of her.
I went, have a great night, collapsed into a fetal position. And it was so funny to me at the time. I mean, I'm sorry that you were terrified. And I also understand now, having listened to people, why you're terrified to walk home alone at night.
Yeah.
But at the time I was like, hey, oh my God. Do you know who loves the Jamie Lee Curtis movie Halloween?
I don't know.
My mom. My mom will almost stop what she's doing, which is rare for her, to watch the Halloween
Your
movie.
mom seems like she would love Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, yeah. Are
Now
you
that
kidding?
I put those pieces together.
I don't think it was an accident. I like still have Freaky Friday memorized in my brain.
I just love Jamie Lee Curtis.
But here's the thing. Mom's also sensible. I don't think she ever once bought Activia.
Well, she did win.
Yes,
I
she
guess.
did. But no, to the point where like my mom loves those like cheesy horror movies. They'd be on all the time when we were growing up as kids. Like during the day when she was cleaning and stuff. Watching TV at night, that's for people who aren't busy, right?
yeah,
With a little
yeah.
background noise during the day,
Yeah.
that's appropriate.
Yes.
And so it was always Halloween movies.
So cute.
It was really cute.
How was your week, Grant?
I haven't spent money in 3 days, so it's been like really hard. I'm gonna get McDonald's on the way home tonight.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, well, after my snack of spicy noodles that I thought was gonna be a
Meal?
meal of spicy noodles, I get paid once a month, which is
Sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It means you have an incredible first week, a second week of returning to reality, and then 2 weeks of living that hard reality. And so Sunday it was like,
Oh, okay.
Okay. We'll be fine. We're always fine. But you gotta stop. And I have. I listen to my own advice sometimes. I just need a little treat. I just need a silly little treat.
Yeah, you do.
Thank
I
you.
support it. I set up alerts on my credit card. Just to like give me like an update every couple days. I don't
Okay.
honestly know how I did it because it's on my Chase Sapphire, but not on my Amazon credit card.
Oh.
But every once in a while, I'll be like, your balance is, and then I have to be like, oh. And that's what convinces me to not spend. I need the constant reminder.
I am sorry if there are children in the car with you as I say this next part. Maybe skip it forward 30 seconds and I'll be done. Checking your bank account is a lot like getting tested for STIs. You're afraid about what it's going to tell you.
But you know
it's
what
so
the answer.
Important. No, not always. I mean, usually, yeah. Yes. But you're afraid is what it's going to tell you. But knowing is so much better than not knowing.
True.
Ultimately. But you do have to make that choice to get checked. And that's on funding your local Planned Parenthood. Brought to you by Will I Laugh. We're not political.
We have no political affiliation. We don't like to be political because it doesn't really impact your social life.
Maybe we're going to cut this next part that I'm about to say.
I was sarcastic.
No, I did. And well done, by the way.
Thank you.
There are moments in the morning where after I've taken my prep and now I've had the first couple sips of my coffee, not a single solid food in my body, but just prep and iced coffee kind of wrestling it for each other, that I was like, living the dream. Living the dream. So that's how I've been. I have been modest, which is really tough for me.
Yeah, you don't handle that well.
I don't. I just want to buy fun little things all the time, and I think I have great taste. That's the issue too. I think I know exactly what to buy.
On our Patreon Discord, dear listener, I did like a little poll. I was like asking our patrons. They already were talking about like what their favorite episode is or what episode they send people when they're introducing them to the podcast. And I kind of asked, I was like, what do you guys think our most listened to episode is? And they had their answers. And when I finally told them what the answer was, I said like, and granted, these ones haven't had the time to like catch up. And Grant's first response was not anything that added value to the conversation.
I think it added value.
Actually, the conversation took a sharp left turn after this, and we stopped talking about episodes altogether because Grant's response was, whenever I see Granted, I get worried for a second that they're talking to me.
Excited, nervous.
It was typed. You could...
Oh, okay. Okay.
I hate it here.
I just meet so few Grants that when you see it, you're like, ooh.
You know what that does for me is when people are talking and they say my, and then they pause and say, and it happens a lot.
Yeah, I believe it
happens
does.
all the time because I'm like, no,
it happens enough that I feel like you should be more sympathetic towards me.
No. Because I don't, when someone types my space, I don't then go, who, me?
Okay, well, Grant is literally like 80% of the word
There's
granted.
no space between Grant and id.
I think we all know I can ignore what I choose to ignore.
Yeah, that's really fair.
I did a little fun little finger thing
Grant
there.
will also make any conversation about him.
Yeah.
He was like, they haven't talked about me in a while. Let's bring it back.
So, Maia, how have you been? How's your week been?
Stressed.
Oh, good.
I was on site this week. Today was the last day supervising an installation of a new UV sterilizer unit.
That's exciting.
At a water plant.
So our water is gonna have just like a nice little artificial tan now, or?
Yeah.
I'm not proud of it, but I'm not ashamed of it. I want you to know. That joke's solidly in the middle.
Stupid. I'll flip that hat off your head.
No, you don't. I haven't shaved. Before I left, I was like, oh, we're going to need a hat tonight.
I feel like you put more thought into your appearance on the podcast than I do.
I agree. Okay, but here's the second half of it. Granted.
Fucking
like
asshole.
2 sips in, and I'm like, I'm hilarious. It's because you're just like naturally pretty, and then we have a bright light shining on me, and that has never been my right angle. So I need to put a little thought before I just leave the house.
So many compliments on your skin.
Thank you. It's a lot of work. So
I know my skin is okay, but I was blessed with genetics, so I don't need the validation. But
I'm a white man who goes in the sun. Do you know how hard this is?
Fair enough.
Anyways, we were talking about your week.
Oh yes. I had to deal with some really fun clients, and I'm gonna keep the client ambiguous because Well, I don't want to get fired.
Hear that?
Yeah,
Hear that.
but this guy, he's basically the design manager who I hadn't heard from ever. Like, his name popped up on my screen when he emailed me, and I was like, who the fuck is this? And this was day 2 of the install. So day 1 was all like making all the stuff that we were going to install and like making sure that everything was prepped, because the line that we're installing on was going to be shut down only for the next day, and we needed to get that all the installation done all in that day.
One day.
Yeah, and so we prefabbed, is what it's called, prefabrication on Monday. Tuesday, everyone shows up at 6 a.m., which, by the way, that's
Wait,
too early.
shows up at 6 a.m.? That is rough. Okay. No, that's rough.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah, that's been my week.
Okay.
Well, I was watching the Huskies on Monday, and so I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to walk them, and we were actually meeting at 7 on Monday, which
Right.
I'm glad for. But holy shit, I am not used to waking up this early ever. But yeah, so Tuesday rolls around, it's installation day. I'm walking into the plant, I get this email from this guy who basically says to like not do what we're about to do, even though he's on the email chain where I ask for approval and get approval, and also mention that I've gotten approval from the entire plant, like higher ups, to do this. And he's basically like, don't. And then he takes a screenshot of the design drawing and draws his own design kind of over it and tells us to take something out. And then I respond and I'm like, okay, to be fair, I got all the approvals, so you're now telling me not to do this. It's been prefabbed. The fact that you took a screenshot of the design document means that you also saw the picture that was directly next to it in my report of the prefabbed thing. So what the fuck?
This is a per my last email. I'm not going to do this.
I panicked a little bit because I was like, installation is starting now. And so I like added... I love Outlook when you can @ people because it just feels petty. But I added like the guy who hired my firm and then the plant manager, and was like, thoughts? Because if we need to change this, we need to change it like 5 hours ago.
Right.
Because this needs to be installed like now. And also this is going to take extra time, and like we need to know. And this is like changing the design at this point is going to add a lot of hours.
Feels reckless also.
Exactly, yeah. And so basically the guy who hired us, the higher up, is the guy that emailed me, director of design. The guy who hired us is director of like installation kind of, or like implementation. He's like he's like more a project manager, which means he's more like feet on the ground, like watching it happen, which means they're counterparts, but technically this other guy's job ends before I even set foot in the plant.
Okay.
And the guy who hired us calls me and is like, don't fucking listen to him. I'm mad that he even emailed you. And I was like, sweet.
Amazing. Let's go, boys.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. And
I do imagine it's like you and then like a bunch of like burly installation men.
that's literally what
It's
it is.
this podcast dynamic, but we all have vests on.
Yeah, like high-vis vest, you and 3 of your friends that look like you all have Southern accents.
Ooh, I can do some Southern drawl.
They were all very kind.
They always are.
They're so nice. But yeah, the thing that the guy was mad about was the floor support. We were like going to be drilling into the floor to like support this thing. And he didn't want that. And so he was basically like, we talked on the phone, we aligned, which I fucking hate that word because it doesn't mean actually anything. It just means we talked and we're aware of what's
We're
happening.
not agreeing as to what's happening.
Yeah,
we
we're not
aligned.
Yeah. And he was like, just send update pictures. And I was like, because we need to make sure that it like looks nice,
Right.
or whatever. And I was like, okay, fine. Like lunch rolls around, the installation is finished. The floor support, however, is not finished because it involves like grouting and epoxy, and so
Sure.
it's going to take like a lot of time for it to be done. And he should know this, right? He emails, he's like, you haven't sent any pictures. I hadn't seen that email because I was on lunch.
Sure.
And then he calls me, and I'm like, yeah.
This is me standing in solidarity with you. I'm going to say that right now. It's you're at the point in your career where you know better.
Yeah.
But people are still trying to manage you.
Yeah.
And I have very recently gotten to my career point where I know enough and there's enough other fires happening that I am largely left alone. Which means
so nice.
that means my final Charizard evolution is the I'm old and doing it wrong and no one's willing to tell me anymore. I am speed running this career is what I'm trying to say.
I think I'm on the other side of that where I'm just coming into being alone and being okay with it. Because my boss was like, yeah, so you're going to kind of manage that. And I was like, what do you, you're going to be with me though, right? And he was like, no. And I was like, you're going to leave me alone? But yeah, he calls me and he's like, I asked for some pictures and you haven't sent them. That I like looked after I ended this call.
Sure.
He had emailed me 5 minutes ago.
Well, yeah, look at it now. If Chase Sapphire credit card can get a phone notification, why can't I?
I was like, yeah, and then I didn't really lose my cool. I think I kept it relatively professional, but I was like, I respectfully, I don't know who you are. And if I ever do a project like this again, I will make sure that you know. But
we will have this, and I'm going to be real vague about this now, but we will have people occasionally, as in with any institution, not unique to where I work, people will show up who you find out are like kind of your boss, who you have never met before, and whose job is so ambiguous I couldn't give you 3 sentences on it. We
talked about that in the Discord today.
Did we? Oh, okay.
I was bored this morning.
Really busy morning, so I didn't get a chance to look at it.
Well, today for me was commissioning and training, so it wasn't big on me. Like, I didn't have to manage anybody really, but I was on the Discord kind of chatting with people, and I was like, who else has had bad employer experiences? You should read it because
it'll be reassuring.
It's hilarious.
Okay.
The second story that gets one of our patrons told a story about when she was a nanny. Absolutely unhinged. But the first story, one of our patrons was like, yeah, there's a new kind of manager, and she's like, I don't even know what her job is, but she's stepping on my toes.
Oh, yes. That might be her job, a toe stepper.
I hate it.
I was at a work meeting once and found out that we, at like our central office level, had a director of blank, and we had been doing blank for years. And I had never gotten an email from the director of a blank about blank. Again, keeping everything really anonymous right now. And so then they came to one of our meetings, and I'm not quite entirely sure if the director knows what they're directing. But that's fine. As long as we can keep this minute to the exact amount of time we time-stamped it for, I'm out of here. See you tomorrow. So yeah, friends, we're there with you, and we're so close to the holidays where no one has to work or anything. Right now is the work time of the work year. Is September, October, first part of November. We're getting so close to,
once
hey, let's circle it.
Yes. Yeah,
everyone's
and you can
circle back to it in the new year, 100%.
Circle back, yeah. The last part of the story is this guy, I finally sent this guy pictures, and he basically told us that it wasn't finished yet. He was like, well, you need to do this, 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 and this to make it look like the floor supports that already exist. And we were like, you know it's not done yet, right? Because you asked for status update pictures, and I told you on the phone that it wasn't done. And then you called our contractor's boss, and he told you it wasn't done yet. And then you emailed me. It's like, buddy, you gotta chill, man. And then
I am sorry if anyone is listening to us today on your way into work. That's tough. This is a tough conversation for you to hear.
Yeah. The guy who hired us eventually called me at the end of the installation day and was like, yeah, me and so-and-so had a conversation about the difference between design and implementation.
Are they aligned now?
Fucking, I don't know. They might be on the same page. Different parts of the page.
Maybe they are conniving with each other.
Conniving?
Yeah, that's a fun word.
What does that mean?
Oh, to connive? Okay, sorry, the look that Maia gave me. To like plot with each other. Oh, they're so conniving means they have evil.
Yeah. Oh God, it's tickling apart. My brain is not working anymore.
It's okay. Listen, for those of you who are like, well, Grant was a huge dick there. That was me being like, I think I've said that word to you before. What do you mean do you smell toast? Like, what do you mean you don't know what conniving means? And then you went real blank in the face, and I was like,
I had a 12-hour day yesterday.
Oxford Dictionary defines conniving as, no, and it's totally fine.
You're right.
There's a moment where I was like, I'm actively trying not to patronize you right now, but you are giving me not the go-ahead, so.
My face doesn't hide my emotions well. And Grant gets the brunt end of that.
But it's so fun too. Much like one of my exes, I always know when I've done something wrong.
I'm not good at keeping it inside unless it's professionally required of me.
I once tried to make someone watch the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which I think is an American classic.
Yeah.
They did not.
Oh, no.
And their face was so loud, I had to stop watching it because it was ruining the experience for me.
I feel like it's an American classic for queer culture, to be fair.
I'm sorry. Are there straight American classics other than like what, Bruce Wayne or whatever his name? John Wayne. There it is.
John Wayne. Midnight in Paris?
Starring Owen Wilson. That's a solid one.
Yeah.
Okay. Who also, like Gertrude Stein and all the characters he meets, gay.
But like it's
We claim that.
It's the 20s and therefore isn't, I don't know, real.
The 20s, this podcast's favorite decade.
People are just very offended all the time
Of course,
by trans
yes.
people. So
Let's actually get into a little bit of history.
yeah.
Let's talk about influential secrets in history.
Part 2.
Part 2 of Influential Secrets. Untitled Grant Thomas project. Kind of got so wrapped up in making sure I got enough information.
That's how I always am.
Okay, cool. We'll record the title sequence that you're listening to. We'll record that at the end of this. We'll figure it out together.
Girl, we always record it at the end.
I know, but I'm letting them know our podcast business.
Okay. And then sometimes it takes 20 minutes while we're like,
I'm like,
and then Casey comes down and says one thing and we're like, that's it.
That's it. I'm damp and I have to pee. That's it, Maya. All right. And then, like, as I close the door, I hear, you're listening to, well... Okay, so we are actually not in the 1920s this time. A huge break from tradition and potentially never going to do it again. Also, right now I'm going to tell you, I'm not about to cover a famous, misunderstood female author who I realized I had kind of gotten into a type, as we clarified earlier. Kind of got into a little bit of a type, and we got to take a step back from that.
Did
now.
they write a book though? Okay, yeah. So still in author territory.
I'm gonna hit you with some names. Does the name Sir William Stevenson mean anything to you?
I don't know, but I also didn't recognize the word conniving about 5 minutes ago.
I'm really excited for this. What about Ian Fleming?
That sounds more familiar.
Okay. What about Roald Dahl? That's fun for me. Okay.
Are these scientists?
We'll find out, won't we? We'll find out.
Fleming sounds like a scientist, but I could
I thought
be
I
wrong.
had copied and pasted that down to the bottom. Do I still have everything? I do. It's now there twice. Okay, cool. Sweet.
Nice.
Okay, so today's sources are the corresponding Wikipedia pages for the people I just mentioned, as well as several excerpts from biography.com and a couple more articles from the Daily Mail. Maya.
Yes.
I am so excited to get this episode started. Okay. Let's do a little history pop quiz.
Oh, God. I'm so bad at history.
Do you know when the U.S. officially entered World War II? Pearl
was
Harbor,
around-
very good. Yep, 1941.
I was going to say 42, so I was close.
December 7th, 1941.
December 7th, 1941. Japan has hit Pearl Harbor.
So America enters World War II December 7th, 1941, making it kind of the last superpower to get involved in the war. The United Kingdom enters the war in 1939 when Germany invades Poland, kind of officially kicking off the campaign in Europe.
Right.
My history degree, which we've covered as a curse, requires me to say this. There had been fighting happening in what we would call the Asian theater or the Pacific theater
Yes.
for years up to this point.
Like kamikaze pilots and everything.
So that'll happen eventually towards the end of the war. Right now, what we're talking about is Japan, its occupation of Korea, Manchuria, and then it's like kind of slowly escalating war with China. That starts in the early 30s, these border conflicts already. But we're talking about World War II as it's like kind of understood from a Western standpoint. September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland, kind of kicking everything off. That means for the first 2.5 years, 3 years, the United Kingdom is kind of alone in the fight. As you covered in the Finish Line episode, very good. The Soviet Union and the Nazis, not enemies to start. And the Nazis,
nuts to me.
yes, and the Nazis will knock France out 1.5 years into the war, essentially, and install a fascist government into France.
Nice.
And so the United Kingdom has a vested interest in getting America into the war as quickly as possible, and also making sure that America does not support the Nazis and continues to support the United Kingdom. So Great Britain comes up with an unofficial plan to win over the hearts and minds of the American people to support the British Empire in its war against the Nazis. And if it can't win over its hearts and minds, it will win over their libidos. Isn't that a really uncomfortable thing to hear? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Her Majesty's government sent over several people to sleep with influential Americans and make them support the British in this episode of Influential Secrets.
Ooh.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's exciting. I'm
Just
looking
had an
forward to
idea
it.
for a episode. Hold on.
Good, because I could really use help naming the next theme.
Okay, that's fine. Also, I just had a really good idea for our Patreon that I'll tell you.
I mean, do you want to tell us right now? And we can cut this part out.
Have you seen The History of the World on YouTube?
Is it like poorly animated?
Yes.
Yes.
I
I've
think
seen clips of it
I think we should watch that as
together.
together and just like record it.
I hope you're prepared to experience what the students in my classroom do, which
That's
is about
fine.
every 45 seconds I go, okay, but here's the thing that you need to kind of understand about like what just happened, and then I talk for 3 minutes after 45 seconds of video, and I go,
That's
okay,
fine.
so anyway.
That's kind of what I'm hoping.
But it's,
My history teacher is the one. My AP World history teacher is the one that showed me the history of Japan.
That's fine.
Initially. Okay.
Influential secrets. The British Empire, which at that time still has Canada as a commonwealth, sets up an organization called, I have it right here, the Special Operations Executive. And it's basically going to house all of their clandestine war efforts throughout the entire war. And what the British Empire fortunately kind of like has going for it is there's a bunch of people from all walks of life, nationalities and ethnicities, that thanks to colonization are also British citizens.
Right.
And so it's able to actually tap into this like very wide network of people to become spies and help get spies set up, including Sir William Stevenson, who was just William Stevenson at the time, a successful Canadian businessman who's going to essentially set up MI6 in America for the British.
Holy shit.
Yes, Sir William Stevenson ran the Make America Love the United Kingdom campaign, and that organization was called the British Security Coordination.
Does this story have anything to do with James Bond?
Oh, it might, Maya.
Okay, cool.
Oh, it might very well have to do with James Bond and loads of other stuff.
Sweet.
But we'll get there. Okay, so William Stevenson sets up the British Security Coordination and sets about to both bring famous British people over to America and get America to fall in love with them, to use their influence at like cocktail parties, dances, and dinners to impress upon influential Americans that they should be supporting the British and opposing the Nazis, which today, in the light of 2023, feels super
obvious.
like understandable. Would like to just kind of casually remind people that at the time the British legally laid claim to like a third of the world, and there was a strong anti-colonial sentiment in America that was kind of like, I hope it all falls apart for them. And they were like, no, you don't, right? You're just kidding.
Right? There's a war on the
What
horizon.
if we had someone have sex with you? Would that change your mind? America, it did change your mind.
God damn it.
We are the dumbest, scariest, most powerful nation in the world. I love us. And
Why
I'm
do we
so-
have this much power?
I'm so glad to be back. Listen, Tyler came back after 2 years in Europe, and all I talk with him about now is how amazing America is. Like I'm one of my uncles at Thanksgiving.
Aren't you glad here?
Isn't it so convenient, just everything you gotta do?
You pay for healthcare?
I was like, listen, it's all fun to walk in Europe, but when I get back to the airport in America, I'm like, my car, my beautiful car, I've missed you. No one talked to me. Casey Musgraves. Like, done.
He just recently moved into an apartment that is like 40 minutes walking from the nearest like downtown area,
Yes.
and we were at his housewarming party, and he was like, that's like doable, right? Like I wish I was closer, but like I could do that. And I was like, I mean, okay.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Yes, you
Yes,
could.
you have like 3 bikes in this apartment, but like sure.
Oh my god, it's actually the only seats he has in this apartment.
Bikes.
I don't know if this was supposed to be in confidence or not, but who's me, you, and
whatever.
and all the listeners. He was like, second day, he's like, is Boulder too far away from you guys?
Yes.
Did I make a mistake? Yes, but I'm a good friend, and I know he won't hear this for months. But I was like, what? No.
We'll drive 40 minutes.
Yeah, it's just like, you gotta give it a try first. Everything's in flux, right? You don't know. Yeah, no.
It's fine.
And like, you don't have to commute to work. You do kind of, but not really, and that's great.
And
you can't put a price on that.
You can take the bus down.
Exactly. And like, the Bohawks and I both have guest rooms, Like,
I do too. Why do you always forget about that?
I don't want to volunteer your guest room in the same way I feel like I'm allowed to with the Bohawks.
Oh, that's fair. I also feel weird about volunteering a guest room because it is Casey's office.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, I have a code to the Bohawks front door.
Oh. There you go.
They gave it to me, and I used it within 20 hours. Not 24, 20.
That makes sense.
Europe could learn a thing or two from Americans. And America could fall in love with Europe. Sir William Stevenson sets up the spy network, and he's hiring loads of people. And the British are kind of giving him some money, but he's kind of doing this because he really hates Nazis and wants to support the Allies in the war. So Sir William Stevenson ends up financing a whole bunch of it. And the British are like, cool, we're going to kind of give you like a semi-government office kind of name, kind of like make you official, but you just keep doing you, babes, okay? And if we got to cut you out from the wind, great, no payroll.
Jesus.
So in America, in New York, they set up at 30 Rockefeller, and it becomes a British passport control is the name of it. And that is true. They are making passports there. They're just all fake for all of their spies.
Oh, cool.
Here's one of his spies. So Sir William Stevenson sets up all these networks, and it's kind of clear that they didn't want just like one organization running everything. A big time suck earlier this afternoon was me trying to figure out like what fell under what and what was under what's umbrella, things like that.
Right.
It was kind of like they were fine having a bunch of different like confederacies kind of all working on the same thing, and maybe someone kind of knowing, but it's I think in that way it's like if one group gets infiltrated, the
Then
whole thing's
you could
not compromised.
cut it, yeah.
That is total speculation. It was just impossible to follow.
Oh, that's absolutely what's happening. I feel
Right. Like, for instance, I don't know where Agent Cynthia, real name Amy Elizabeth Thorpe, I don't know exactly what agency she fell under. See, Amy Elizabeth Thorpe was a good time, or at least the fascist French ambassador thought that. So remember, Nazis take over France and they install a fascist government, so then all of their ambassadors and all the diplomats kind of get switched out too, or they're like, yeah, I'm a fascist, great, amazing.
Code switching.
So Amy Elizabeth Thorpe, aka Cynthia, just slept with every person in the DC office to gain secrets about the war from the fascist French.
Jesus.
And who was paying for that? Sir William Stevenson.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Sir William Stevenson was super important to the British spy effort. His own code name was Intrepid, which is super cool, but it's even more important because they wrote a little book about him later, James Bond. The entire, so James Bond is pulled from a bunch of different people, but specifically William Stevenson is one of the core people that sponsored it.
And he's like the kind of head of all of these,
correct,
like,
at least of
networks.
American
of the American side
and things like that.
Okay.
Yes. Sir William Stevenson plays a huge important role. You'll notice, though, James Bond's name isn't Sir William Stevenson. It's James Bond. James Bond, Ian Fleming, the author of James Bond, loved bird watching, and James Bond was an American, not orthopedic, but like the word for American bird watcher, for bird watchers.
Yeah.
What is it? It starts with an O.
Oh.
Pause for station identification.
My first thought was...
Ornithology?
Yes, I think...
Is it ornithology?
That sounds right. My first thought was the French word for bird, and then I know that's not right.
What is the French word for bird?
Oiseau, which starts with an O.
Ornithology is the scientific study of birds. James Bond was an American ornithologist, and James Fleming liked bird watching and was like, cool, your full name. And
put it on this guy.
This full, real person, and bada bing, bada boom, I got a novel.
My name's Grant Thomas.
Listen, I don't need to know anything. You just need to know people. And I can just kind of layer it all together and then cheat on my wife. But
I'll have some great stories to tell.
Yes. The tough thing is, if I was born 70 years ago, I'd be the most doting, loving, asexual, but loyal husband you women could ever have. Have
you seen that ad? It was, I think it came out while I was in high school, but it was like gay men that was like, oh, you don't want to approve gay sex?
Fine.
We'll marry your wives.
Yes, exactly. We'll share all the household chores, including our collection of doilies, and we'll make them happy.
And we'll listen when they rant.
Right. Friends, I want you guys to know right now, dear listener, this episode doesn't have like a big sad moment to it. It doesn't have like a bigger life lesson to it. It's just like America was literally seduced in part into supporting the Allies in World War II. Yeah. And I think that's silly enough to warrant 2 hours. And so if you're like, this is the most unstructured, scatterbrained, how drunk are they conversation.
We're not even drunk.
No, like stone cold sober. We'll be driving home to McDonald's after this. And then actually home. Do you want to go together? We'll be right back. No,
Cut, we have cheeseburgers.
I kind of feel like I'm in a groove right now. Anyways, so there's no like sad part. This is a silly episode. Maybe you hate it. I don't know, but Ian Fleming says like, hey, Sir William Stevenson is like the person that helped inspire this. Ian Fleming worked with Sir William Stevenson a little bit, because Ian Fleming was like a super important ideas guy for the British in World War II.
Jesus.
So the next page of this book, let's talk about Ian Fleming in World War II. And what we're about to start getting into, for all the people that I talk about, is people who lived fascinating lives.
Yeah.
And then the war came around, and then they were even cooler. And then afterwards, they all died in the 70s.
Oh. I'm just trying to imagine what it would be like to meet someone that immediately was so cool that you'd be like, I'm going to write a book about you, and you're going to be the main character. And then I remembered that I met Grant and was like, we're going to start a podcast.
That's so kind. Shut the fuck up right now. I will leave, and I won't bring you to McDonald's.
I just gave you like the one compliment that didn't come with a butt at the end of it.
I know. Why do you think I'm saying now what I'm saying?
Fuck off, man.
That's really kind of you. Thank you.
I'll find a way to bring him down later, folks. Don't worry.
So let's talk about Ian Fleming here for a little bit.
I love him.
He gets brought on as basically like the personal secretary for an important person in the British government. Mm-hmm. I didn't really write down that person's name because they clearly weren't as important as Ian Fleming was. Ian Fleming produces all of these crazy different like memos and things like that. When I say he's an ideas guy for the British Army in World War II, I mean it. He kind of under his boss's name, penned a memo that listed 30 ideas as to how to like draw out, trap, and destroy German U-boats. This man, when he was on like his little runs and stuff, he'd be like, yeah, what if we used a big net? It was like kind of at times Scooby-Doo ideas for winning the war.
There's an episode of The Office where fucking Dwight and Jim team up, like the one time they ever team up for anything. And I think, Dwight is like trying to like subtly poison someone, but it's not subtle. He's like giving this guy hot chocolate, and the guy's like, no, I'm good. And he's like, no, but take the hot chocolate. And
yeah, this like a face.
It's not poison. It's like an insane amount of laxative,
Good.
I think is what it is. And so Jim's like, we should work together on this. And he comes up with an idea, and he's like, we should like jam his desk drawers so that they only open an inch because that'll drive him nuts because you can see everything, but you can't grab everything. Yeah. And Dwight's like, that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Write down your first 100 ideas, throw them out, write another 100, and then we'll talk. And so they get together, and Jim hands him the list, and he's like, this is 500. And he's like, yeah, I got really on a roll, and they're all really fucking stupid things. And at some point, Dwight goes to open his desk drawer, doesn't open. And he's like, oh man, this is right when we were getting started too. He's like trying to open it, and obviously Jim has like jammed it just to prove a point. But
Huge Ian Fleming.
that's how this
energy.
feels. It's like we could just trap them.
There was an operation in World War II called Operation Mincemeat. There's a Netflix movie about it now. It's pretty good.
What?
Mincemeat?
Who names these operations?
The British Army. Well, it's going to get a little sad here for
okay,
a second.
I'm sorry.
I just promised no sad parts. This isn't the main story. Operation Mincemeat is when you intentionally drop a dead body off the coast of Spain that looks like a downed airman that is stuffed full of what looks like top secret documents, but are actually fake documents. This is a real thing that happened because Spain was neutral but had a fascist dictator in Franco
So
at the
they'll
time.
go get the dead body,
And then they will
look at them.
kind of pass the secrets on to the Nazis, but then also pretend like they're not passing the secrets on to the Nazis and like kind of trying to play both sides. We're going to come back to Spain a little bit, especially with Ian Fleming. Really kind of interesting there.
I love that. That's
Anyways, Operation Mincemeat's a real thing and convinced the Nazi officials high up to keep thousands of troops in Norway in 1944 because they thought that's where the next Allied attack was going to be, keeping them away from the beaches of Normandy.
So like everyone was really doing ghost army shit.
100%.
At this point, everyone's like, how can we fuck people up?
100%. And while Ian Fleming was not the main organizer or like the main creditor of Operation Mincemeat, he did pitch out kind of something vaguely similar also at the start of the war.
It's horrifying to me that they named it mincemeat.
Yeah, 100% it does,
Like
right?
it's a good idea.
Yeah.
But when you call it Operation Mincemeat, that's horrifying. That's horrible.
They used the corpse of an unhoused Londoner.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, isn't that even worse?
That's really sad. That's really
They could
sad.
have picked literally any Operation Fallen Angel. Feels so.
Oh, that
apt.
would be so.
Let me name your World War II missions. But here's something, kind of throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. Ian Fleming did put together a couple of different things that did stick. For instance, in partnership with the guy he worked for, he traveled to America, attended a bunch of meetings, helped set up some organizations that would eventually become the CIA. And then gets back to England and then assembles this specific division in the army called the 30 Assault Unit. And it's just 30 guys with special forces operations who, before the actual attack begin, go in first and specifically attack the headquarters to get all their maps and stuff. And he did that as well. And then after that mundane life, he became a writer.
So imagine if you're one of those people in that group of 30 and you're robbing a place for maps and then you turn around and there's a bear.
30 Assault Unit would prove so popular that they built a whole bunch of them, 30 Assault Units, and then on D-Day, they were used not to go attack like a headquarters and get their documents, but just as kind of like commando troops.
Right.
And Ian Fleming was so mad that they risked a unit that was so specialized for a non-specialized mission that he was put back in charge of 30 Assault Unit. Yes.
He probably was like emailing so often they were like, fine, you do it.
Quite honestly, yes.
You want to control it so bad? Do it.
Another idea. This was a really fun idea. Again, ideas man Ian Fleming,
Yeah.
who's connected to Sir William Stevenson, who is a real person who hired a bunch of people to essentially prostitute themselves out for secrets.
Sweet.
They were trying to grab a German Enigma code breaker.
Okay.
Which is like kind of famously what Alan Turing and stuff
Yes.
was doing. But instead of like solving it with math, Ian Fleming was like, what if we like take it from a different angle, okay? So we capture a German bomber plane. And then we get a bunch of Brits who speak German. Then, stay with me here, crash it into the ocean. And then as it sinks...
Was Captain America on that plane?
And then as the boat sinks, the German crew comes out to save it, and then surprise,
We're alive!
the Brits who speak Germans also have guns! And then they capture the crew while their plane is still sinking. They capture the crew, and then they come back to Britain, and then we have the Enigma code machine.
How?
Well, as someone pointed out pretty early on in that pitch, all of the German bombers we have huge holes in them because we shot them down. How long do you think it'll float for?
This feels very Weekend at Bernie's, like his
100%
whole
it does.
thing.
And so he has like a bunch of bad ideas, a couple of decent ones, like the CIA and 30 Assault Unit. Oh, which by the way, after the war just gets turned into T-Force, or I think Task Force. It's like a real thing. Anyways, that's part of his legacy.
Oh, okay.
But as we know, World War II isn't really like what Ian Fleming is known for.
Yeah.
So, after the war ends and Ian Fleming is demobilized in May 1945, he became the foreign manager for the Kemsley newspaper group, which at the time included the Sunday Times, the biggest newspaper in the UK. In this role, he oversaw the paper's worldwide network of correspondence. His contract allowed him to take 3 months holiday every winter.
This is sweet.
I know, right? That's a whole quarter of the year, and he's just allowed to take off during the winter. And so,
That's so nice.
what does every man who fought for the British Empire do? He takes it to one of their colonies. Every winter, he vacationed in Jamaica for 3 months.
Oh, honey.
Fleming worked for the paper full-time until December 1959, but continued to write articles and attend the Tuesday weekly meetings until at least 1961. He went to Jamaica so often that he built like a small kind of like cottage and estate
You have
for himself.
to at that point.
Do you want to guess what Ian Fleming, the author of James Bond, named his estate?
MI8.
No, Goldeneye, the name of one of his books. And do you know where he got that name from? Oh, it was the name of one of the missions he did in World War II to set up a spy network in Spain. It was the actual name of an actual government operation he was assigned. Thought the name was cool, and then named it after his Jamaican estate. And do you remember how Spain and Goldeneye was related to Operation Mincemeat? It all comes together, folks.
Comes together.
Loosely. Much like mincemeat. But together.
No!
We need to cut that, we can.
No! It's staying now.
Was it The Whisper that was tough for you? Okay.
What really, not to bring it back to The Office like I do every time, but Michael Scott's, what is it? Code Midnight? No. Operation Midnight? Threat Level Midnight.
Oh, his movie.
His movie.
Yes.
the villain is Golden Face.
Which is based off of GoldenEye, which was the name of both a Jamaican resort and a spy network in Spain, which was then used to help carry a dead body, from the streets of London to the Nazis to convince them that they were going to attack Norway and not Normandy, ultimately winning the war.
And then Golden Face blew up a hockey rink.
I honestly think Ian Fleming would be proud. I really do. That's the fun thing about the way we do these shows is you become so like weirdly deeply familiar with these dead historical people that like after a while you're like, honestly, I do kind of feel like I've captured their spirit, their essence.
Same.
I think they'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so after he retires, or kind of after the war, Ian Fleming has a mistress. Her name is Anne Charteris. 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 Yeah. And Anne, her first husband dies in the war. Really sad. And she then expected Ian Fleming, her mistress, to marry her.
Her mistress.
Ian decided he wanted to stay a bachelor. And so on June 8th, 1945, Anne remarries the second Viscount Rothermere. Nevertheless, she definitely kept her relationship with Ian Fleming going for years, traveling to Jamaica all the time, pretending to visit his neighbor, Noel Coward, who is a famous British playwright at the time.
Oh, I love
Hugely famous. Oh, sorry, not playwright, like singer and actor.
Love that
It'd
even more.
be like, hold on, let me get the second name in this analogy. I'm going to LA to visit my good friend Brad Pitt, and then you're actually hooking up with McLovin. who is Brad Pitt's neighbor, is like the best way I could. I don't know if McLovin
I
is.
love that, though.
I don't know if that's a reference outside of anyone. Mr. Darcy, but now. Okay,
Yeah,
that's not who McLovin is, but like, you know, like I'm gonna go hang out with this super hot person. Oh, actually, never mind. Just the guy who takes all of his good writing ideas from the life he has lived so far.
Oh, no.
Anyways, her and Fleming do have a child out of wedlock. But
Bastard!
Well, it's born still. It's a stillborn,
Oh.
which is really sad. But it does
That's so sad.
let Viscount Rothermore know that Anne's definitely cheating on him. And so they get divorced in 1951. And I guess after 6 years of being a bachelor, Fleming's like, I sowed
right.
these oats. And then
Fine.
they get married in 1952, like 11 months after Anne gets divorced.
good.
And they have a little baby together,
Oh, cool.
their son Casper.
That's such a cute name.
Bring it back.
Oh.
Let's go ahead now to
Could nickname it Cass?
and then they, like, for the most part, kind of live out a lot of their life in Jamaica. They'll go back to London every now and then, but they love to be in Jamaica, and they love to host people in Jamaica. Here is who Anne and Ian are, like, kind of connected to later on in their life. Both Ian Fleming and Anne had affairs during their marriage.
That sounds about right.
She with Hugh Gaitskell, the leader of the Labour Party, like the head of that political party.
Jesus.
And the leader of the opposition.
Oh.
It's the same person, I think, but like Labour Party is also the opposition party.
Okay.
So she has an affair with essentially, like, I don't know, the like Mitt Romney, if he's the leader of the Republicans these days, the leader of the opposition, which is fine because Ian Fleming had a long-term affair in Jamaica with one of his neighbors, Blanche Blackwell, who is the mother of Chris Blackwell, who founds Island Records, the UK's largest record company for a while.
Shit.
But it's okay. They were both equally friends with British Prime Minister Anthony Eden.
Jesus. What the hell?
And so Ian Fleming, ideas man in World War II, moves to Jamaica, builds an estate, names it after his spy network, and then later names his book after his estate, after his spy network. Lives a bachelor for 6 years, has a child out of wedlock, marries, has a child within wedlock, continues to have all sorts of relations, but it's fine. So does Anne. Real free-loving people. I think it's that Jamaican, like, climate attitude,
Yeah, sure.
life's a vacation at the beach kind of mindset.
Sure.
This is not the end. I have one more person I want to cover
Okay.
after this, but here is the last little part about Ian Fleming. Because he would then, basically every winter, he'd go to his place in Jamaica, and it was there that he would write the next year's James Bond books. And so, like, 10 years, 10 books, couple plays and stuff like that, too, or short stories.
Are there James Bond plays?
I think so. Like Casino Royale, GoldenEye. It might have been like works of like fiction, not full plays. But yeah, he produces a lot of work. I do believe we've had enough time that you've seen the good stuff, like for the record.
I mean, that's fine, but I want to see a James Bond play now.
Well, here's the thing. If you do, you're going to probably recognize some of the names.
Okay.
Why? Oh, because basically all of the names that were used in James Bond came from people that he knew.
Jesus.
Scaramanga, the principal villain in The Man with the Golden Gun, was named after a person he went to school with who he hated.
What is with him and like golden things?
I don't know. Oh, because the very next thing, Goldfinger, from his first
What?
novel, was named after the British architect Erna Goldfinger, whose work Fleming really did like. So that one was a compliment. Sir Hugo Drax, the antagonist in Moonraker, was named after Fleming's acquaintance, Admiral Sir Renigold Almire Rainfully Plunkett Emery Drax.
Not like golden
17
leg
names.
or something
No.
like that. Like Jesus.
Goldface. And then in the movie, Drax's assistant, Curbs, bears the same name as Hitler's last chief of staff.
Holy shit.
They're the villains, though, in
Okay,
Fleming's books. And then one of the, and this is a correct quote, one of the homosexual villains from Diamonds Are Forever, Boofy Kid, was named after one of Fleming's closest friends.
Oh no.
And a relative of his wife, Anne. Arthur Gore, 8th Earl of Arran, known as Boofy to his friends.
Boofy?
And so you have this crazy British spy network that is connected to all these people. This spy network that will later on be immortalized Kind of. In
Okay.
Ian Fleming's work.
Right.
Because Ian Fleming's working in the UK, Sir William Stevenson is working in the US. They're building these kind of like loose spy networks, trying to change public opinion, trying to influence
Right.
things like that. They're all part of the security operations executive,
Right.
the like big name
Yeah.
for it all. And then in America, Sir William Stevenson's organization is called the British Security Coordination and is ran out of the British Passport Control Office.
Which is so funny to me that they're like making enough fake British passports for people that they need an office.
I think it was like, this is a legitimate enterprise, and as long as it comes from this office, it's not weird if you have a passport issued by this office.
Okay.
But like, there wasn't any British people in America trying to like
Get a
get back to
passport,
Britain,
yeah.
right? And also, there's like embassies and stuff still, totally fake. And the U.S. government was aware of it, by the way, and J. Edgar Hoover was pissed. But FDR was
As he
like,
would
calm
be.
down, Nancy. J. Edgar Hoover was a speculated homosexual, so it's fine for me to say that.
Fair enough.
But yeah, J. Edgar Hoover was perhaps the only like kind of really sane person in this
Yeah.
entire equation, where he was like, what do you mean we've given the British a free pass to spy in America, and also all their spies keep having sex with Americans? And that brings me to my third and
Oh,
final
God.
person of the night. Roald Dahl. So in 1942,
Rolled like I rolled on the ground.
maybe it's Roald, R-O-A-L-D, Roald Dahl.
Okay.
In 1942, America was a very recent ally in World War II. Very recent. And really only enters because America gets attacked on Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
That means that there's still many people in the country who would refer to themselves as isolationist, who believe that America should isolate itself from the rest of the world and that it didn't need to worry about affairs in Asia or
Girl, you
Europe.
got pissed when Japan went closed border. Calm the fuck down.
Sure, but this is like 1942. Like, most Americans still at this time will live their entire life within a 20-mile radius of where
really
they are
sad.
born. And also, like, America's huge. Most Americans born at the time will hardly ever see more than 2 or 3 states, let alone the whole country. So the idea of then having to
Yeah.
go to these other places, it just didn't really make sense to a lot of Americans. And also, America kind of helped in World War I. I mean, it certainly did. It helped push the balance in the right direction. But it wasn't like a deciding factor like it was in World War II.
Yeah.
So America doesn't even have this perception of itself as that at the time. And then also, America has just kind of exited the Great Depression or is in the process of exiting. So there's a lot of Americans who are like, let's spend this money at home. Europe's so far away. We have 2 oceans on either side of us. Like, we have enough stuff to worry about. We helped them out the last time. It didn't seem to do much good. Why would we go back? And also, you're like, if you look at the places that are getting punched, it's like the British and the French Empire and communist Russia. And it's like, none of these places are necessarily... Communist Russia, good riddance, you know, even at the time.
Right.
And then the British and the French empires, where America's kind of always proudly been colonial and everything but name. And so we wanted to see that collapse. So isolationist was an understandable, but like deeply ill-informed foreign
Yeah.
policy decision. So,
The dogs are mad about that, by the way.
Sir William Stevenson has a couple of famous British people, or soon-to-be famous British people, flown over to America. And that includes Roald Dahl, who had worked in oil companies for the British in what is now Tanzania.
Okay.
When war breaks out, he joins the Air Force. He is wounded in combat and comes back. And even though he's still physically able, the like trauma of the plane crashes means that he like has blackouts sometimes and things like that. Fortunately, he's 6'3", curly brown hair, and gorgeous. And so they send him to America, where he is immediately introduced to an oil tycoon by the last name of Marsh, who by all means just finds him like really interesting. Believe me, listener, I looked for the gay connection. I looked for the wink-wink connection. No, not at all. I think Marsh was a ladies' man. Roald Dahl was definitely a ladies' man and was being bankrolled by Sir William Stevenson and the British government to basically go like party up and like help America warm itself up to being a British ally.
Okay.
And
I mean,
Roald
fair enough.
Dahl might have been exactly the man for the job. So it's 1942. America's not thrilled about going into World War II. There's plenty of isolationists. Some people even blame President Franklin Delano Roosevelt for being like so eager to join the war that he doesn't do enough to prevent Pearl Harbor from happening. Like, there is still a strong anti-war movement. So Dahl is sent to the British Embassy in Washington, D.C., where, like, basically America's connected wealthy are gathering because the war is about to get started. And it's just kind of brought around to all these parties. And at first, he's just like, hey, go be charming at all of these parties and then report back what, like, drunk American elites are saying about the war effort, things like that.
Listen, I think I just found Grant's dream job is to get sent to fancy parties and relay gossip. Like, get the hell out.
The worst part about this is that Roald Dahl has sex with, like, so many women.
All right, we have enough closeted gays now. We could make it work for you.
I know, but here's the thing. Have you ever met a closeted gay who can keep any other secret? No, their mind's worried on one. So you don't need to sleep with them. You're going to be able to get the secret other ways, you know?
You could get a lot of secrets out of the women, though. I feel like they would trust you implicitly.
Oh, yeah, sorry. All of my strongest emotional relationships are with women. Dahl could be charming, which won him invitations to dinners and parties. And that helped him along in society was his friend Charles Marsh, a newspaper owner and oil magnate who would also eventually tutor future President Lyndon B. Johnson. Eventually, Dahl would become so involved in American society that he was kind of almost forced into being a spy because he had been told so much stuff and was still kind of part of the British
I can't
Army.
keep this a secret.
Right. So the British Security Coordination agents were trying to keep an eye on U.S. involvement in the war, and they were like, well, Dahl's going to be perfect for it. Here's who Dahl, by the end of the war, was connected with. Dahl was regularly invited to Hyde Park, the personal residence of President Roosevelt and First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, where he took notes to pass along to the British. Among Dahl's other notable friends and admirers were, at the time, Vice President Henry Wallace, who they played tennis together regularly, and then future Vice President, at the time still Senator, Harry Truman, who liked to play Dahl in poker at his poker nights.
Oh my God.
I think this man was blitzed for 3.5 hours.
I'm surprised he wasn't invited to Bohemian Grove, quite honestly.
Yeah, actually fair. Probably because he was so busy in Washington, D.C. One day, he was invited to a dinner and intentionally sat down next to Congresswoman Claire Booth Luce, Luce, a congresswoman from Connecticut who was anti-colonial and did not really support British efforts.
Fair.
Dahl was just supposed to kind of like sweeten her up and win her over. After they'd had sex for 3 continuous days, Dahl asked...
Oh my God!
Dahl asked to be taken off the assignment. He was so physically drained from the experience. Again, sorry if you have...
Luce!
I know. Well, also, Congressman Luce...
Congresswoman
Luce loved Dahl. And also was married at the time to the man who owned the New York Times.
Holy shit!
And so when he was like, please, I need a break, they were like, it's the New York Times! It doesn't get bigger than this. Because here's the thing. Like
You've reached the big time!
Exactly. Because Sir William Stevenson, his like kind of on-paper job was to push a pro-British anti-Nazi message. So they pushed out a lot of press releasings to like newspapers and radio stations that would tell wars that made you feel sympathetic for the British or angry towards the Germans.
Right.
And then those stories, if you could get them in the big papers, would get pushed to like smaller papers and things like that. So the New York Times was a huge get. But the British what the British, operations security executive, right, what all these spy agencies kind of understood, had a hard time formally endorsing, but were not oblivious to it, but was that like they were using a lot of seduction to get all of this stuff going?
It's a lot of sex.
And so Dahl was like, please, I can't anymore. They were like, think of England and get back in there, chap. At one point, because Dahl was like kind of so drunk and just kind of everywhere, the British government called him back because they didn't think he was a good spokesman. And Sir William Stevenson organization was so upset about that. They got Dahl brought back to America and then also given a promotion in the army to like acting wing lieutenant or whatever. basically to like kind of make him untouchable. And by the end of the war, Roald Dahl was so important that when the American author Ernest Hemingway wanted to visit London in 44, Roald Dahl was his minder, where he was just like, yeah, I'm going to show you around the town. We're going to have a great time. And then after smoozing over another American playwright and famous homosexual, Ernest Hemingway, came back to America and kept his job up.
Also, I want to know the hijinks they got up to.
Oh, I want to know every minute of this man's life for 4 years. I want to see his daily journal.
Yeah, where's his diary?
Another conversation with Frankie, Roosevelt. All he talks about is the war, period. What about my life? I have things going on, too.
Granted, I can't talk to him about it.
And so Roald Dahl was a schmoozer, a spy, a ladies' man, a important person. After the war, he would live a very quiet life. I'm joking. Do you know what Roald Dahl did with his life?
What did he do?
He wrote James and the Giant Peach, and The Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Matilda, and The Big Friendly Giant, and so much more.
Roald Dahl?
Yeah, famous wounded fighter pilot person who, as Charles Marsh's daughter once said, I think Roald Dahl slept with anyone worth more than $500,000 on either coast of the United States. Would then go on to and would marry Patricia Neal, famous movie star. They'd have 2-3 kids. Well, he would then have an affair for years and then leave her and then marry another woman, and also kind of a smidge anti-Semite.
Okay.
Sorry,
hate the anti-Semite.
Not laughing at the anti-Semite, but just like all the details I just threw at your face all at once. Yeah.
Hate that he was an anti-Semite. Can you read the names of all the things that he wrote?
Yes.
Because you just hit so many of them.
Remember when you were like, is this about a book, Grant? And I was like, yes. And then later you were like, oh, is it about James Bond? I was like, yes. And you were like, I figured it out. And I was like, yeah, Maya.
Yeah, you did.
Good job, champ. Okay, so you ready to go?
Yeah.
James and the Giant Peach.
Okay.
The Fantastic Mr. Fox. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Holy shit.
Also, a different book, Charlie and the Floating Glass Elevator, which gets lumped into the movie.
Oh, that makes sense.
Matilda.
That one surprises me.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The Big Friendly Giant.
Okay.
And then so many more. He is considered one of the 50 most important British authors since 1945.
That's fucking insane.
Correct.
That he was also like this insane
fighter
prostitute
pilot
spy?
and prostitute spy. Yeah.
He had sex for 3 whole days and was like, I gotta go.
I can't. Listen, at one point he was like, she keeps chasing me around the room. Married Congresswoman Claire Booth Luce, who was a strong anti-colonialist and married to the owner of the New York Times.
Chasing around a Brit.
Yes. So,
oh my
all
God.
of this is really interesting, right? Like, fascinating, compelling. It's all being turned into a movie. So this is actually my Cocaine Bear episode, but
again.
done better.
Yeah.
The name of the movie, starring Henry Cavill, is titled...
That's it. That's all you have to say.
Okay.
I'll go.
Same, especially if he plays Roald Dahl. Titled The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, which is the nickname they gave the special operations executive, the like peak of the spy pyramid that did everything.
Oh my God.
A couple other things.
When does it come out? I need to know.
2024.
No, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like very soon. Because
Yeah,
it's actually, we're almost done with 2023, which is wild.
I love Henry Cavill.
Yes. There's a lot to cover. I really do think they're going to cover at least Roald Dahl, who again has a complicated legacy. We were laughing at like kind of the way he was used in World War II, and then that later fighter pilot, decorated war hero,
and then
prostitute spy would then become like the world's most famous children's author.
Like how like did you just have like a list of all the things that are contradictory and then you just like were like, I need to do actually all of those things in my lifetime?
It's like
what?
Okay, so I have 2 things. I want to first finish some of the other things that the special operations executive did They ran a bunch of kind of clandestine things, like I said, kind of scattered throughout, a bunch of different organizations and efforts kind of pushing together. For instance, one thing they did was hired Cecil Clarke, who was just a maverick engineer who spent the 1930s inventing, quote, futuristic caravans. But when the war started, made a dirty bomb that killed one of Hitler's favorite generals.
What's a dirty bomb?
I think it includes chemical exposure, like a bit of chemical warfare. Anyways, Reinhard Heydrich was an absolute fucking dick, so no loss to the world
I'm not
there.
mad about the death. I'm just like that.
They also hired William Fairbairn, who was a porty pensioner, which just means a retired person, right? A porty pensioner who had some unusual passions. For instance, he was the world's leading expert on killing without making any noise, and he trained guerrillas to parachute behind enemy lines and just quietly kill people.
What? I was thinking you were going in a completely different...
No, they're like, shh. That was this retired old man's weird expertise.
I was thinking you were going in like the direction of silencers or something, and instead you said gorillas.
Like, oh.
Gorilla, right? You meant gorilla, like you surprising them?
Yes, but when there's a lot of like surprise, they're like the gorilla soldiers.
Okay, I heard just...
Oh, you thought he trained monkeys? You thought they sent monkeys into Berlin to just like kill? For all the insane and ridiculous things I have said tonight, that is amazing. The villain is a gorilla that they employ. And we even started this episode talking about Casa Bonita, when it's never far from our hearts or our minds. Sponsors.
Or our actual location.
Or our stomachs. Honestly, I'm peckish right now.
I'm just imagining a gorilla in a parachute holding on with a knife.
Well, I'd imagine the knife would be in like one of his hands or his mouth.
Yeah.
Like both
He's
hands
holding
on the canopy.
Parachute.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
He gets out of the parachute.
Exactly.
Foot to hand, get the knife, and just like maybe he has a few like throwing stars, knocks out a few, kills a lot.
I too like to think the animal kingdom was against Nazism.
It feels like the right thing. You know, orcas are dicks, but like
yes, they are.
They have animal brains, so it makes it okay
There's
somehow.
this really popular Halloween costume this year, and it's that you just basically put on like a black shirt with a little orca fin, and you get a little pin that says "Eat the Rich" or something like that.
That's really funny.
I know,
We
right?
should have someone dress up as a boat. Danny. Dress Danny up as a boat. Push him over.
I think Danny would dress up like a dinghy. We love you. We do love you.
That would be so funny.
So now we're into like final thoughts and reacts. I think what America is really missing is really interesting people who do just like several lifetimes worth of work, right? Because like Ian Fleming and Roald Dahl in their own lifetimes were important cultural figures. And before that also lived like 2 or 3 other lives. Complicated men who seem to view marriage more as a suggestion as opposed to a pact. But you also don't really know what happens within someone's marriage. Sounds like Ian Fleming's wife, Anne, was totally fine with their arrangement. So who knows?
I mean, fair enough. Yeah,
But it's like...
thought you were going to say American culture is missing gorilla soldiers. As in soldiers that are gorillas.
Someone tell the History Channel I absolutely want to see that series of Ice Road Truckers. But it's American Guerrilla Warriors, and it's like 8 different gorillas, hosted by Jane Goodall.
It's Planet of the Apes, but
Everyone's worried about AI. No one's worried about monkeys
gorillas.
who've been trained to kill silently. I mean, just like in general, when thinking about these like cultural figures, imagine if like in 4 or 5 years, Kim Kardashian is like F. Scott Fitzgerald, right? Like imagine like if that's just like the next, or like, I mean, I kind of love to say it. Britney Spears is about to come out with a book. I do think Kim Kardashian does or is about to have a law degree.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me, actually.
Who would be, in your mind, the like craziest current celebrity who goes on to be like a well-received intellectual or author?
well received is it's pretty key there.
Why? Who were you gonna say?
I can't remember her name. She used to host like the most conservative, absolutely batshit nuts.
Ann Coulter.
No.
Laura Ingraham.
No. Laura Ingram's close, but she wasn't even on Fox News, is what it was. She had like
Judge
a
Pirro.
YouTube channel.
Oh, the gun girl who pooped
Yeah.
her pants at that party. You've seen that picture, right?
That is another one. She looks like that. Oh, it's gonna drive me bananas.
Oh, what is it's
She got her show like canceled, I think.
She like unironically did that. Do you know what grinds my gears? Kind of thing.
I think yes. Yeah, she did that, and then
You're gonna say her name and it's gonna like really register. It's
Tommy
not-
Lauren.
Tommy Lauren.
Tommy Lauren.
My debate kids, when she was popular, like 6-7 years ago, called her Tommy Lasagna. Correct.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Tommy Lauren, if she became like a well-respected like politician.
Do you know where I actually could kind of see this actually happening to, though? Like following this route? Gus Kenworthy.
Who's Gus Kenworthy?
Out gay Olympic skier.
Okay.
Who then is, I think, kind of right now in his reality star era. But I could see him then having, like, I don't know, like a really movie. Oh, do you know who else is kind of doing this? Harry Styles.
Yeah.
Harry Styles is also kind of on this.
He's kind of
track.
doing everything. I can see also like some of the other ones are like Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Right, and then who's the other? Chris Christie.
The New Jersey governor?
Yeah, I feel like he's just fucking everywhere. I
Crazy that you're on Chris Christie talk.
I'm on CNN.
Okay.
And he's one of the only Republican candidates right now that's like, Donald Trump, get your ass out here.
Sure.
But I could see him just going off and doing some other crazy shit, like becoming a singer-songwriter or
Oh,
something.
I could see that.
Yeah, right.
Also, Whoopi Goldberg is the first EGOT winner.
What?
It's an Emmy, an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and a Tony. EGOT.
Damn.
Did I just teach you a little bit of like gay theater history?
Yeah.
EGOT, yeah.
I'm really bad about knowing which like award ceremonies are for like which thing.
Good.
Yeah. They're like the Oscars, and I'm like, oh, like for the arts, maybe the songs.
For the sports? What about for the cooking? What is that? When is that one coming out?
Which one is that? Which one's for the TV?
That is the Great British Bake Off. Don't know why that was so hard for me to say.
That was really hard for you.
What's conniving mean?
Shut the fuck up. I had a moment, okay? I literally worked like a 13-hour day yesterday, 12 of which were in a plant.
Is there a card I could get you that lets you know I'm holding space for you, and I also think you should seek treatment for your heroin addiction? I'm making a reference to episode 23 for those of you who do not get
Yes,
that
I actually
reference.
have a really great recommendation. I think I have the extra card
While we
still
were
that I
there.
got for
I actually
Casey.
kind of appreciate this moment to set the record straight. If you or someone you love is working through heroin addiction, it's so proud of you. That's really cool.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like honest
That's
to God,
crazy
good job.
that you're doing that.
Kind of crazy to have that handed to you. You've never once whiffed a single thing of heroin when you've never been in the same room, as far as I'm aware, with heroin.
Yes, I gave that to him as a joke because I knew he'd never done heroin, and it therefore
Bold, but okay.
was funny to me because he also makes jokes about coming from an alcoholic. I don't know.
just genetically alcoholic family, yes.
Yeah.
Family's
It was
good.
not a joke at all about heroin addiction because that shit, I have an addictive personality, could not imagine that. But also putting the inserts in the card.
It did balance
Gave me
the
a lot of
compliment well.
serotonin.
I think most people followed us. When I was listening to it, I was like, oh, I wish I had given one line to be like, hey, and also, this is fun. But anyways, this is what happens when we have a silly episode. It is much like when we get interviewed on other podcasts. There are no like tracks for us to be on. We're a floating train.
I've been so quiet over the last 3 days because okay, here's something that I keep thinking about. For those of you who have ever worked in a plant or a place where you like have to wear ear protection, it boggles my mind that people can still hear other people talking when they have their ear protection in, because it drives me bananas when people start talking to me and I have to take out my like earplugs and be like, what are you saying? And then I have to like ask them multiple times to like shout it at me. Because somehow these contractors have the worst hearing in the world because their eardrums have been so irreversibly damaged by all of this noise.
Tinnitus?
Yeah, but also have the best hearing in the world because their earbuds are like fully in and they can still hear me.
Right.
And it drives me, and you have to like roll the little earbuds for so long before you can stick them in your ears, and it drives me crazy.
What kind of earbuds do you have?
They're just like they're like foam ones. They're like the ones that they give all the contractors. They're over here really quick.
I'm about to get an earbud tour. With little cord in them too.
Yeah.
These are.
Have you ever put them in?
No.
So I actually don't.
I'll probably pass on your used earbuds.
I don't actually think I've worn these ones. I think I opened them and then we're like, actually I have a pair. But you're supposed to like roll them in your hand or in your like finger until they become like really small, kind of.
So they expand in your ear?
Yeah. So then
you can get them in as deep as possible?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a very strange sensation feeling them expand in your like ear canal, but...
And her whole world collapsed. Hey friends, this has been a fantastic time. We either have 18 minutes or I think we have an hour and 15. I think it's gonna be a slightly shorter episode, but it's been a silly one. I hope you've had fun. I'm sorry if you've had kids in the car that you have to keep fast forwarding through, but for those of you who have enjoyed this, we have a lot of fun over on our Patreon too. I've recently shared some stories which
won't be shared here.
No, I can't share here, but they're fun. We have a great Discord that Maia checks regularly, and I kind of check once, but then respond to everyone and then disappear again for 3 days. So if you would like to do that, we are Well I Laughed Podcast on Patreon. You can also send us listener stories, like the Casa Bonita story we got this morning. You can do that on Instagram at Well I Laughed or TikTok at Well I Laughed, and you can email us at welilaughedpod@gmail.com.
We're also on Facebook if you're not on any of the other social medias.
Right.
We just don't check that as much. So.
And we post the video of this on YouTube, and we're getting up to 1,000 followers on that, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we also will probably have a merch store running by the time this is up. Go check out our Instagram for some links if you would like to get some merch, including probably the shirt that I'm wearing right now, the OG launch from the summer.
OG one.
Plus, who knows what else we can manage to do together. But until then, this has been a wonderful way to spend a Wednesday evening. For those of you wondering when we recorded, Ahoy just went live. So.
Yes, today.
Anyways, thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.